This conference will now be recorded.
We're going to go to manually do it. Can we increase the size of this here? Of the display? Yeah. Yes. Okay, all this
Stuff like that, you use it all.
It is now 10:05. I'm calling this town
Council special workshop meeting. And the first thing on the agenda is the public comments. So anybody that had the public comments based on what we're talking about today, please feel free to step up.
It's not in the workshop.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so I understand we're going to be talking about the record location. In reviewing this, because I
Make sure you
just reading this quickly, so I'm going to give it.
Name and
I
address.
question again, I do see,
Your name and address.
I'm sorry, Cheryl DeFalco, at 15 North Dogwood Drive. It appears that, yes, they do need to have a license, that's great. I'm not seeing, now I'm seeing that anyone holding a license can apply to be on the record location with the police. I don't know if I'm reading it correctly. So now we've made it like someone in North Myrtle Beach can apply. I don't know if that's true. Looking for clarification on that. And it says, the owner operator of any vehicle may request the police department to call any towing carrier of their choosing. So they can call someone however far away. And how does the police department verify that Joe's Towing up in North Myrtle Beach has a business license here? Are they going to be on scene and trying to figure that out? So those are two of my questions. I guess we'll go over that. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments?
Judy Kenyon, 11 Hammond North. I'm assuming since we were talking about parking, it also includes golf carts. I have an issue with golf cart parking. Golf carts without stickers are parking in beach access parkings all over this town. They have rental stickers on them, but no Surfside sticker. I think if we're going to have people paying to park in our downtown parking area, but yet we have people coming from everywhere renting, I don't care if they're renting golf carts or what they're doing, they're parking in spaces that are literally there for those of us who pay extra taxes to be able to park in town. And that needs to be changed, and it needs to be changed very quickly. I don't care who's on the parking committee, but we need somebody to represent the residents there as well. One other thing, I think we paid for a parking lot to be built down on Surfside Drive. And I think it was as a result of the fact that in those infamous 23 minutes that became 22, that there was no parking allowed in the E district. Is that parking lot, was it built to serve the E district in lieu of the business owners in the E district having to provide their own parking? Or what was it built for? One. Two, why can't residents park in that parking space? Because I understand that even residents with stickers are not allowed to park in that space. If I'm wrong, if you don't mind correcting that, that's what has been put out there. But if we're going to pay that much money out of the town till, then residents at least should be able to use it. We need to make certain that we do things in the future with residents in mind. We always do things for businesses, but this is for residents as well, because we do pay taxes. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay, next thing is into business, and we're going to talk about chapter 9.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to reply to one comment that was made. As far as the Pinewood Parking Lot, regardless of why it was purchased, what it was for, etc., we are currently in violation of our own ordinance by restricting that lot to be a pay-only parking lot. In reading the ordinance this morning, I noticed it specifically states that the leased lot on 4th North is the only pay-only parking lot. Excuse me. So we're currently in violation by restricting that lot to a pay only anyway. So I would propose we comply with what the ordinance says and just make that a metered lot like all the rest.
Anybody else have any comments on it? I wasn't part of the decision to say that you couldn't use the Surfside stickers on it, so I'm not exactly sure that they do have.
I'll just say I agree with Ms. Keating. I mean, we shouldn't set it like a normal lot, allow residents to park there because it's empty all the time anyways, first of all. And second of all, it's just another lot. I mean, if you have a sticker, you should be able to park there. I don't have any problem with that. I agree.
Okay, so I mean, we all agree here, so I guess we should make an amendment to that.
Yeah, I don't think we need to change chapter 9 at all. We just have to instruct Public Works to remove the restriction signs and install meters. When you install meters or reinstall meters, however that works.
There's still meters on there.
Yeah, our meters on.
Yeah, well, then it's just a matter of removing the signs.
Mr. Shanahan, you-
Yes, sir, I guess I'll jump in. Basically, what we're doing here is, and we did this with some of our other ordinances, is we're going through line by line. We're not gonna do 917 because we've already done that in the council meeting. And we're gonna review, make any recommendations, and I'm assuming folks there had the opportunity to say what they've got to say based on these. And sorry about that, she's telling me I'll be up here. And at the end of that, hopefully what we'll end up with is an ordinance that is the way it needs to be to best service the town itself. So that's where we're at, and that's how we did it last time. So unless you all have issues, we'll just jump right into this. I'm not gonna read everything with the big thing. I figure you've got it in front of you and we've got it here. And we'll just take it line by line and see if you're okay, if you recommend any changes. So we'll start with section 9.2, jurisdiction of municipal courts. I don't see any issues with that or anything like that. Sorry, I put the glasses on, aging myself. And 9.3, that was the reckless operation of bicycles. This shows it being pulled out, but our police chief let us know at the council meeting that he felt that it needs to be in there, not for our children doing silly things and getting themselves hurt, more for what some of the adults do when they come down on vacation. So, yeah, so the issue is, do you want to leave it or do you want to take it out? Or would you like to say something?
Thank you. So, yeah, this is not like a end of the world kind of thing here, but I will tell you, like, kind of like I said in council, even this past year, we had 2 adults, one of which was riding wheelies down the middle of, really good wheelies, by the way. It was impressive. All the way down Wednesday Road on one wheel, running cars off the road. I've seen gestures towards those vehicles, and his buddy was doing a TikTok video of it as they did it. And that went all the way down Surfside Drive and on Ocean Boulevard. And I actually intercepted them doing this. So there is that occasional situation where this is an issue. It's not every day, it's not very often. But do know that I spoke with our canine officer, and we've had a couple of incidents where some people were using bicycles to move around and do some illegal things in town as well. And this ordinance has come in handy for some of that. If you guys don't like it, it's okay. There's other more important things in there that I need left in. I just felt like we would let you know we do use this on occasion.
Chief, when we first met about this, you felt that most often they would be cited for disorderly conduct or for some other code, and that this wasn't necessary. changed your mind?
Well, I started thinking about the example that we talked about, which is the one that I just gave, and ultimately I did charge that particular individual for the disorderly conduct, just for the other behavior related to the bicycle and the obscene gestures toward motorists and causing a disruption in town. But the original reason for me having reasonable suspicion to conduct a stop on them was the observation of the reckless operation of a bicycle. Ultimately, I did not charge them with that offense. I went with what I thought was a greater, more serious threat to the quality of life. So again, it's not that big a deal, but I just want to let you know we have used it. But if you feel like that's just not something that should be in our ordinances, that I understand that piece too.
Yeah, I think we should just keep it because it's not really, it just makes sense to keep it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with keeping it. I mean, obviously, not many people even know it's in there, but the chief, the police officers could use it when they need it, then we're good.
I agree. We probably keep it in.
Okay, the next one we're gonna talk about is 9.4, standing parking beside roadways for certain purposes. I think the first thing that I would make a recommendation is on the first sentence. I would just say, no person shall stand or park a vehicle alongside any roadway for the principal purpose of displaying it for sale, maintenance, or repairs, or, for sale, washing, or maintenance, because everything else that you've got identified is some form of maintenance. So rather than just looking for specific things, I would just say maintenance as a whole. And that covers everything. That even covers stuff that's not up there that, if it gets in the way, safety and so on, with the understanding there's an emergency issue. We need to do it. I would just simplify that sentence, to be honest with you, and make it easier for us to enforce and keep it going. And then the second part would be, again, the chief talks about selective enforcement in reference to the colored sentence. So if you'd like to say a couple of words on that, chief, I'll let you jump in.
I was hoping that Elise might be here today. I know she's tied up, but she and I had a conversation about how some of this wording, as far as just saying that a resident could park a vehicle on the right of way, is sort of a selective enforcement. If you want to allow it, then I would just suggest that we allow cars to be parked on the right of way for sale rather than saying a resident can. For example, if we have a business in town that has a connection to one of your town right of ways, then can they not, but a resident can? I think you have to be careful about that, because if a business gets told, hey, you can't park your car on Highway 17 in the right of way for sale, and they say, well, in the ordinance it says we can, and the police department has to say, well, you're not a resident, you're a business owner, and I think that's an area you have to be careful. That could create some liability for the town as far as selective enforcement. So my recommendation would be, if you're okay with cars being on the right of way for sale, then allow it, and if you're not, then maybe you should consider not allowing it. But I would just be careful about trying to work in that gray area in your codes. That's my only recommendation on that. One thing we do see from the police department's point of view is sometimes we'll have a business along the highway, and they will literally pull a car right up onto the right of way and park it for sale on a business. I don't think that's a good look for the town, that you may not want. And also, it's a safety thing, because they normally park it, within close to wherever the entrance is to that business and such. So we have some line of sight issues. So I don't know, maybe you could say in the residential area versus the commercial zones, if you really wanted to make that possible. I do know we had a complaint from some residents. There was an old Ford pickup truck that sat on 10th Avenue South near Dogwood for sale for a long period of time. It was a nice truck. I don't know why nobody bought it, but it just sat out on the side of the road for sale. And it actually was in front of the person, their house that lived there. Wasn't very sightly to see, a vehicle sitting on the right of way for sale. But again, I don't have a preference either way. I just wanted to try to be careful about the wording of saying one group of people can and another group of people can't. That's my only suggestion for that. Any questions?
Any questions?
Well, the only thing I would say is, add the concept of a timing, a temporary, because if I have my car for sale, excuse me, and I want to put it at the end of my driveway or out in front of my house with the for sale sign on it, and in the evening I pull it into the garage or, wherever, so just temporarily for the day, it sits out there, so, it's advertising, so hopefully somebody will buy it. And, so maybe what we do is we eliminate sale or washing and greasing from the first sentence, and the second sentence saying that temporarily leaving a vehicle on, the public right of way for the purpose of sale or washing would be okay. I just think that it's only fair if a resident or, has a car for sale, that they be able to advertise it, parking it in front of their house.
Sure.
That's my only point. And certainly washing your car, if I want to wash my car down at the end of the driveway, which I'm not gonna do because my driveway's long enough, but not all people have driveways long enough. So,
Right.
I just think allowing that, and maybe just add that concept of the timing of it, that it's only temporarily during daylight hours or, whatever.
8 to 5, 8 to 7.
Yeah.
I don't see that many vehicles for sale. So there's a lot of work we might be doing for this. And, I guess I could see them going it to a street, but being 10 foot off the road in their property, it's not going to affect the sale of it. So it almost could be sold on the wrong property. So do we need this law?
Some of these situations, kind of in line with what you're saying, Councilman, is reasonable people would use this allowance in a reasonable way. And unfortunately, like we're seeing with right-of-way obstructions right now, we had this discussion yesterday. Council made some changes to Chapter 12 back in 2018 and made it a little easier for some people to put certain things in the right-of-way around their property. And some of those were reasonable, but if you drive around now down in the R3 district, you'll see that a lot of people are putting a lot of stuff in the right-of-ways, lights and plants and all kinds of things that are, and I get it, they want to keep people from parking, but it's one of those things where a little bit of allowance was taken a little too far too. So I see your point, I see what you mean by that too. So it's just a matter of.
Can I make a comment?
Sure, absolutely.
I just want to jump in for 1 second here. It may help the conversation. I believe in our chapter 17 zoning, we already prohibit commercial entities from displaying merchandise for sale or lease off-site. So it needs to be on their lot, not in the right of way as it is. So that might help with this parking conversation a little bit for what it's worth, because we've pushed golf cart places back off the right of way for that very reason many times, when they started encroaching on the right of way on Highway 17.
So it could say,
Yeah, we already prohibit businesses from,
so rather than saying a resident's private property adjacent to, perhaps we could say in the residential area, rather to distinguish from the commercial area.
yeah, because commercials already prohibited from sale or rent or lease of merchandise off their property.
Well, and this also wouldn't circumvent the restrictions we have for safety purposes, the, 20 feet, 20 or 30 feet from an intersection, from a driveway, those kind of things as well. Just because it says something here does not circumvent those other.
I just want to.
No, thank you, I appreciate it. Because, John, you know some of the commercial code better than I do, so maybe we could reword this to where it just says the provision will not say preclude a resident from parking an owned vehicle on the public right of way.
Or maybe encroaching on the public right of way. Because, my concern is not everybody has, 20 feet of yard and 10 feet of right of way.
And maybe perhaps in a residential area for temporary purposes.
And, stipulate the daylight hours, that it can't be left there overnight. Do we, mean, we preclude parking in the right of ways overnight anyway now?
Right-of-way parking is not regulated at night.
Okay.
No, no.
Because I know we temporarily put a car in the right of way when we're shuffling, 3 vehicles in a single driveway. But we always pull them back in the driveway at night, so I didn't know if they could stay there overnight or not.
They can stay on the right-of-way, overnight. There's some wording, I think, in state law that regulates the amount of time the vehicle can sit in the right-of-way as well, because it considered abandoning the barrel along the
All
right-of-way.
right, so if we just say temporarily,
I put temporary purposes, or we can say temporarily. I can work with some of that wording, and then we can maybe talk about a little more about that as it comes to first reading.
okay, sounds good, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, now we've got 9.5 and 9.6, and I say both of them because I don't see any recommendations for any changes or anything like that, so unless somebody has something, I'll move to the next one. Everybody good? 9.7, no parking places. When you look at it, you get down to number 7 on that, in any needed space, pay station area, or upon public right of way with the vehicles facing against the proper flow of traffic, unless directed by a law enforcement officer. You can't do that. And John actually brought up something about parking done on 7th and First Street in reference to folks going in night at a perpendicular 90-degree angle. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, just things you notice as you're out and about. What I've noticed in the past is in a lot of blocks where there's wooded lots and things like that, people will park perpendicular to the road to avoid parking in our paid parking areas. And when I brought it up to the PD or the parking Lanier people, I've been told that the ordinance says you can't park opposite the direction of the flow of traffic, and that's not opposite. So it would probably be thrown out in court, so they don't write those tickets. However, we are still losing 20 cars to our paid parking lots because of that loophole. So I had suggested that we correct that language to address that in some fashion.
So we can change against the proper flow of traffic and just say contrary to.
Something like that.
What about the house on, was it 3rd North and Cedar? They've actually created their own little parking pad out in front of their house. Do they have an encroachment permit or something on that?
They do not. That was done without a permit. I told the previous owner who died.
Yeah, she just sold it.
When he was building that, do not do that. You have to get an encroachment permit. Your parking needs to be on your lot. And they wound up continuing it up. And subsequently the gentleman died. And, I gave it to the previous code enforcement officer who didn't seem interested in pursuing it. So
What was that address?
it's on
It's 3rd North and Cedar.
the northwest corner. They put in a gravel
Yeah, well,
perpendicular pad.
it has recently new owners because she just sold it. She moved to Florida or something like that. So it may be time to address again.
Yeah, that's the history of it.
Okay, just wondered.
So does everybody agree that we should change it to make it so that it doesn't say, along with the flow that it.
Yeah, it's contrary.
Can I jump in on that real quick? If it's okay with you, I'd like to check with a couple of our other municipalities. Maybe they're already dealing with this. They may address, we may need to add a number 8 and maybe mention, call it out by name, no perpendicular parking or something. If it's okay. I agree, it needs to be addressed. I'll work on trying to find something that addresses it so that it's consistent with other areas along this.
What about some of the challenges we're having along the west side of Ocean Boulevard? Do we need to say no parking in loading zones, or, we've got all the golf carts that park in front of Bubba's and Neil and Pam's, and now, I understand we've got actual parking spaces near the Gracious Pig or the cantina. I mean, that whole area is an issue on the west side of.
We've been talking about that pretty regularly, John and the administrator and I, and I think that there's a plan in place to address that area from in front there.
What the plan is, I guess, is we're looking at, that's what we're talking sidewalk, right? We're looking at put the sidewalk that connects the sidewalks on either side. But one of the issues we keep getting brought up is safety. Well, if you've got golf carts or vehicles in that area, what you're doing is you're pushing the citizens out into the street or your customers. And if they're out in the street, then they're gonna cross over to the other sidewalk because they want to be safe. And then when you see that happening, then you got other people coming. But if we've got a sidewalk, then hopefully what it'll do is it'll direct the citizens and visitors to the corners where we have the crosswalks. And the goal is just to make it safer. So we're looking at cost, make sure we've got the money in the funds. And the goal was at the next council week to bring that as a recommendation to the council.
Well, I know we have another clause in here someplace. I think it's paragraph 916. It says there's no parking shall be prohibited on the east side of Ocean Boulevard. Maybe we should prohibit it on the west side of Ocean. Just say no parking on Ocean Boulevard, period.
That wouldn't be a problem. We've only created maybe 8 to 10 little zones that people can park anyway on the west side of Ocean Boulevard, like 3 or 4 cars at a clip where it would meet all the requirements of 30 feet from the intersection, 10 feet from the driveway. So most of the blocks on the west side are no parking anytime, but there are certain segments that allow parking with a permit only, with a town sticker. But rarely you see anybody park there, if ever. So to create no parking anytime both sides would not be really a headache for anybody. And getting back to what the
That makes
administrator,
it easier on when you're to enforce too. They see a car parked there, you don't have to evaluate, is it okay, isn't it okay?
right, and the sidewalk idea has been talked about for years, to be honest with you. It's just that block was never sidewalked for some reason. They stopped it first, the other side of First Avenue South. It's just a hodgepodge of driveways and it's a very narrow right of way. The town right of way between Third and Third is only 40 feet. So you have very little room to work with. That's why you see the sidewalk in front of the big hotel. You see it's only a 4-foot sidewalk. And that's all we can do on the other side too. It's only 4 foot, the minimum legally required under ADA. But it can be done. And I've had a couple of concrete guys look at it and get some prices. And it would not only solve the parking issue, it would make it much safer crossing with all those pedestrians.
With both restaurants open right now, in the near future, that makes a lot of sense.
But yeah, and people can get to that crosswalk at Surfside Drive much safer.
The way they have it organized is in front of the Gracious Pig, they have it for loading and unloading only. So if we make a sidewalk on that, then how are they gonna be able, I mean,
That goes away.
well, we know that River City, they get a US food truck, an 18-wheeler every day. And it's been problematic them getting in to River City. Where are they gonna go when they service the Gracious Pig and the Cantina and Bubba's and all that? Because they're gonna have to come with a US food truck to do that.
The idea behind that area in front of the Gracious Pig and the building next to it, when they submitted their encroachment permit, which is, we can reclaim our right of way at any time. The idea behind that was so people can drop off people to go and eat and pull out and go park. Certainly they can get their deliveries in the back on the Old Pond Drive, where there's hardly any traffic.
That's where they go now, it's all
Yeah.
trucks parked.
The people parked in front right now are just working for the most part.
We should have it.
Yeah, you wouldn't allow that on Ocean Boulevard, so I think a sidewalk's the way to go personally.
In 9-8 is definitions, and the only issue that I had, and again, it's for clarification, I might just not understand it, would be vehicles. It says shall include automobiles, trucks, motorcycles, trailers, golf carts, or other obstructions. I'm not sure what other obstruction is in reference to a vehicle.
Well, let me just say that from this whole section down through 917 and beyond was just basically editing for consistency, consistent use of definitions. We originally had vehicles called, including golf carts, but it never said what. So in the text of the document, as I went through it, it said vehicles including trucks and trailers and other obstructions. What another obstruction is, I don't know. A sidecar on a motorcycle or something like that. But, it was there before. So just to eliminate it being added 5 other places, I just said, well, let's just define a vehicle to be those things. And then we can just use the term for consistency and brevity instead of saying and including trucks and trailers and so forth. So the point there was just bringing it in for consistency. I mean, golf carts have beach buggies put on the back of them, so maybe that's another obstruction.
I'm still learning to be a golf dog guy, so. Yeah. Again, the next one is 9.9 and it's called charges. The only recommendation that I have on this, is code charges, and the only recommendation that I have on this is when I drive around there, most of the people using it that don't are visitors, the people with decals are parking there and they're not paying anyway. And I was wondering why we don't just charge every parking lot $2. Gives us more money to do stuff that we're doing. It's only affecting visitors coming to the community, and it's not higher than what everybody else in here is doing. So that would be my recommendation for all the market.
So your recommendation is take the value parking away
Yes, sir.
and just make them all consistent?
Yes, sir.
Because it's not that far of a walk, and if by chance we turn around and we change it to $2 and people don't come to that value parking, all of a sudden it goes away, we could always change it back.
Or our only value parking is 13.
13 cents, they don't come to that lot anyway.
Yeah.
Like any parking.
Yeah.
Whether it's 50 cents or $2, we're gonna make the same amount.
Yeah. And you're right, but it,
I don't know. I said keep it 50 cents and maybe it'll entice someone who wants to save money, but that lot stays empty regardless.
Well, the only issue is that the Yopon parking lot's $1.75. It's no further from the beach than the value parking lot. And what's the fees being charged on the 4th Avenue lot? Are those $2?
Well, we basically have a deal work with them that we don't own that property, but we lease that property so that half of the meters, we split the meters.
Right, and what do they charge?
But it's my understanding that they've already given the town notice. They want their property back.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know how long that's going to be.
I don't have a problem making them all $2.
I'd say make them all 2 except 13 South.
Well, they're all 2 right now, except for 13 South, right?
No, it's $1.75 for one from up there.
and then the other thing on this is, we have daily rates of $10, which is good. If you're gonna do it the whole day, you get a little discount. But then the weekly rates are $40, and that's for 5 days. I would say change that to $50 just because it's $10 a day for 5 days.
Every year. And it's not a big deal. You're trying to entice them to get the whole week.
Well,
So,
the whole week is 7 days, so they get 7 days for the price of 5.
Mhm.
So if I was a golf cart,
Mhm.
okay, and I didn't have a Surfside beach sticker, and I was renting a house down here, and I wanted to get my parking at the Yopon parking lot for a week, how would I do that? I can't buy a weekly thing. Are they gonna give me a sticker for a week?
To be honest, I'm not sure what the
Usually what
process
you
is.
would do is you put in your tag number or whatever, and they know that you paid, and the parking people can look that up in their computer, but a golf cart, unless it's a low-speed vehicle, is gonna have a tag on it. So how do those people pay for parking?
Off the top of my head, I do not have an answer to that, sir.
It's like they got, we parking be back there.
Yeah, okay. Temporarily.
But I will check on that because, that's actually a good question to make sure that they're playing by the same rules as everybody else.
I think a lot of people rent the golf carts for the specific purpose that they can park for free in the small access.
Paul, what do you think about the parking as far as the $2 for all lots except for 13?
I agree.
I mean, it should be for all lots because the 13th South lot is not geographically significantly different than the Yopon lot.
The one thing is, though, with occasioners, if it's 50 cents or $2, it's not gonna make a difference in that parking there. Because most of our customers be coming down here, I'm not valuing people parking.
Most people want to be in the, by the pier, in the C3.
Maybe we should do something else with that land.